48 years ago, Paul Anka stood on stage in Poland and apologized to his fans. See, he was 22. He had already had a bunch of hits to his name, including this one.
Always stand by me, Diana.
Ah, Diana, one of the best-selling singles ever by a Canadian artist. Anyway, Paul had been touring Poland, and the plan was for one final stop in Warsaw. Unfortunately, that day was also this day.
President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Paul had to cancel his show, but he told his fans in Poland that he'd make it up to them.
I will be doing no injustice to them, and please, I would like to say goodnight to them.
And well, it took nearly 5 decades, but a few weeks ago, Paul finally made good on that promise. He returned to the very same concert hall and performed that show. Kind of like the longest intermission ever, but no big deal. So, what is it like to leave the stage as a 22-year-old kid and get back on it as a 70-year-old? Well, those 2 nights in Poland are like bookends on an incredible career. Paul has written more than 900 songs, recorded by the likes of Buddy Holly, Tom Jones, even old Blue Eyes himself. That's right, Sinatra's My Way, as you know, Paul Anka wrote it. He also penned one of the most enduring TV themes in history, a tune an entire generation now associates with bedtime.
The Tonight Show, starring Johnny Carson.
Paul's songs have been part of the soundtrack of our common history, and as for the present, well, it's got a brand new record. It's a Christmas record. It's called Songs of December, 11 holiday classics by Canada's original teen idol.
He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake.
Please welcome back, Paul Anka. Hey, bud. Hey. And if you really hold me tight.
You're singing good, George.
Welcome, man.
Another Canadian singer. We got enough of them, huh?
That's right. Isn't it,
Justin Buble, I love it. Isn't that great?
In the last few weeks,
Yeah.
the 4 of the top 5 or 6 have been Canadians.
Yeah, so it should be.
From different genres as well, which I think
Yeah.
is really interesting.
Yeah, very interesting.
How do you think that is? Do things have to happen in an industry for years for that to be a reality?
Well, we've certainly grown up into that. I mean, when I started, being Canadian and even coming from here, I didn't get that much support. You know, we were living in the shadow of that big giant down there. But it evolves and evolves, and, you know, we've got some very talented people, and it does take time. And, you know, the interesting thing for me is who's going to last.
Yeah.
And, you know, to me, I feel these guys are talented, but they're in the hands of people who need to know what they're doing, good managers. Because ultimately, when they grow up and find themselves, what are they going to find?
I've often wondered, I mean, there's a million talented people who work really hard.
Yes.
What has to go into it for someone to actually cut through?
You know, that's a great question. I've always believed, that's why I go on stage and leave it on stage every night, is that there's always somebody out there better than you are. And there is. Whether you're a comedian or a singer, there's someone out there. They just don't get that lucky shot.
Right.
And when they do get it, the important thing is, till you find yourself, I mean, if you look at it historically, indigenous to all of them that have last, from the Beatles to Elton, they've put in a certain amount of mileage and hours to find out who they are once they make it. You just don't roll out of bed and have it. So it's really tough, because I think there's a better chance today because you have all these idol shows and what have you, but it's still tougher because the record business is going into a very strange phase looking for a new infrastructure.
I want to play a clip, something that you went through. Let's take a look at this.
But I would beg for their assistance in making me feel that I will be doing no injustice to them. And please, I would like to say goodnight to them.
Wow.
That's a significant moment from you. You're a young man in Poland.
Yeah, first Canadian, first American artist. In the 60s, I was asked to go by the American government. The theater I was playing in Warsaw was built by the Russians. I was sitting in my dressing room, and there was an old radio in the corner. I was with the head of United Press, and I was listening to this kind of cryptic announcement, but I got it. Kennedy had been shot. And I went on stage right there, and I was crying. I couldn't go on. I canceled my tour. The entire front row were all politicians. They jumped up. They were rattled.
They heard it from you.
From me. And I promised the Polish people that I'd come back, and I did. November of this year.
Yeah.
It was about 49 years.
Yeah.
And they were just incredibly emotional and sincere, and I'll never forget that night. I'll never forget the assassination of Kennedy and where I was.
Had you known him? Did you have a relationship with him at all?
Yeah, I'd been to the White House. I knew him, well, I knew him with the Rat Pack when I was in Vegas.
Yeah, Kennedy used to fly in, didn't he?
Well, yeah, he flew in and did whatever he wanted. And Sinatra and the guys, you know, ran Vegas, and they were very behind his getting elected. And they took care of him. You know, I mean, there was partying going on. There was, you know, we weren't in a media-driven society. It was a lot of fun. You know, I saw the frolicking, and you know, knew his brother, Bobby. And hey, you know, they were good people. And it's a tough thing with politicians. You know, I've grown up to realize that, unfortunately, love your country, but just don't trust those that run it. Love your country, don't trust those that run it.
When did that occur to you?
About 10 years ago, yeah, 10, 15 years ago. I just realized that there's a system in place where they're not just thinking of all of us all the time, and I'm quite concerned because I've never seen the world quite like this. There's just a lot going on that kind of frightens me for my children, for my grandchildren. You know, I read a lot. I pick up a paper every day. There's always some guy politically getting in trouble somewhere in some city in any capacity. I mean, how is this happening? You know, I mean, every day.
Well, I think it's a lot of times we spent so much time expecting them to be perfect, and so they focus so much on their sexual proclivities,
right,
and miss the point that there's so many other more dangerous things happening in the background.
Well, indeed. I mean, the commentary for me was, with the whole Clinton situation, I realized that his popularity went up. I mean, you know, in the Oval Office, I mean, I always say, you know, Obama's casual, not like George Bush, who wears a suit and tie, but Obama takes off his jacket, Clinton took off his pants. The point is...
Had to be comfortable, man.
The point being is that with his popularity that went up, and believe me, I've been in his company, he's a smart guy, and I like Bill Clinton. We adapted in the States the European attitude of, you know, in Europe, the wife is known as the other woman. So all of a sudden, nobody cared here, you know, because over there, it's a way of life, how they carry on. But, you know, these guys just don't realize that they're in public office, and there has to be a line drawn as to how you carry on, and you pay the price.
Yeah, and you can, as much as I don't spend time worrying about what their private life is, you can sort of see how it does lead, their choices that they make in their relationships can speak to their ability to make decisions.
Yes, absolutely. You know, and you're dealing with power and ego. I mean, those things will destroy you. You know what it is? It's once you take your eye off the ball in business or government, and something else huge is distracting you, you suffer. It's like Tiger, you know, great golfer, and thank God he's winning again. But when all that happened, and you get involved in those dynamics, your game goes down. Your game, metaphorically, with anyone. And when you're dealing with, you know, the public and people that put you in office, you have an obligation to them. I mean, you know, everyone's kind of teased me through the years, would you run for mayor? Would you go back and do this? And I say, I won't step down. I like what I'm doing. I think it's an important obligation when you've got all of us folks, right? And we're the responsibility to each other. They have to take care of us.
So when you're a kid and you see President Kennedy in some of those rooms, what's that like then?
It's scary. Because you got girls running everywhere, you got Sinatra running everywhere, you got Dean Martin, Sammy Davis, and I'm this young kid. You know, in life, you never know what's around the corner. And I'm this young kid from Canada who happened to get lucky and have a bunch of hit records. But now I'm working for the mob in Vegas, but I'm a kid. And I'm seeing these larger-than-life people running around in steam rooms and carrying on like it's just party, party, party.
Like it's Rome.
I am totally, like, over the moon looking at this stuff. Over the moon. And it was my college area. It's where I learned to do what I do. It's where I learned to not to do and what to do, but I'm seeing people that, substantial people, substantial figures in history.
You know, of late, Nickelback had that issue when they played the halftime show in Detroit. there was negativity towards them. And I was thinking about you in your early days. And early in Ottawa, you didn't get a lot of support in the very beginning, right?
Correct.
How long did it take you to get over that? Because it hurt.
Years.
Yeah?
Years. I didn't come back to Canada for a long time.
You were booed, weren't you?
What?
You were booed, right?
Absolutely. I was booed in my my hometown, which I later intellectualized, and I got it. I mean, come on, I'm a 16-year-old out of Ottawa. You know, I mean, it's unheard of. And you go back home, and they're not quite grasping it. You know, the world is not ready for show business at that time. So, you know, I was afraid to come back. I said, hey, I don't have to, and I don't want to be treated like that. But it's totally changed.
Yeah.
That's gone with, thanks to you guys.
Yeah, they're certainly there. All right. Stick around. We're actually going to ask Paul for a couple of things, including a tip on how to handle a mob of screaming teenage girls, and he's got it. We have footage right after this.
We don't want no one hurt now. We want everyone to stay nice. Come on, one more.
I think he's cute, and I like all his records. I'm in his fan club, and I got 555 pictures of Paul Anka all over my room, and I got a Paul Anka sweater.
We're back on the show. So that's an NFB film called Lonely Boy, an NFB film back in 1962. We've seen lots of those images of a superstar and this mob of screaming girls, but I wonder what's it like to be on the other side of that white hot kind of obsession?
Look, I looked at it and said, one day this is going to end. I mean, now all those girls, you know, a lot of them are still around, but they're throwing support stockings, and they got. So I mean,
hey, but it's nice to get the attention.
Oh, great, man! It levels you up. You just can't take it all seriously, because at the end of the day, you're so lucky to be doing this. You know, people are out there scuffling, having a tough time. So it's girls screaming and carrying on like that. You can't get jaded, and you can't blow them off. I mean, to this day, I'll still sign autographs. I'll still interplay with people, because that's why you're there. You know, they put you there. You can't sit and start getting, oh, you know, a lot of these artists, oh, get them out of here, and I don't want to deal with them. But that'll end quickly, because they're gone too.
Sure. Yeah. Well, that clip wasn't too far off from the first clip we played about the night that Kennedy was killed, in roughly the same era. So when you went back on stage in Poland this past year, you were in the same room, the same stage.
They only renovated the dressing rooms, and the amazing thing was, when I left the theater, even when I walk in the audience, which I do, the same young people that were there had now grown up, obviously, were sitting in that audience, and they're holding up vinyl records, and they're passing me notes, and they're saying, thank you for coming back.
Did any of them say, did it have to be 50 years?
No. But you know, I see you writing. The amazing thing, when I went to the airport after the Kennedy event, at the airport, people were coming up with matchbox covers, writing on anything. We're so sorry, we don't like the Russians, we didn't do it. And how they got my music over there, Cuba would press a postcard, a plastic postcard, and put a hole in it, and ship it to the Iron Curtain countries, and that's what they played to hear my music. It's pretty heavy.
You said you saw all that stuff in the room with the frolicking and all that, but when the mob and the president are in the same room, was there ever any weird connections that you saw?
No. Listen, those guys were gentlemen. They were shirts, ties, quiet-spoken, very laid back. You know, there was none of, you didn't feel any tension. You just knew you should keep your nose clean, because if you stepped out of line, there's a horse's head in your bed the next day, you know.
Did you ever
those
piss them
guys
off?
were very, very cool. Never, ever, I just stayed very clean. You know, they left me alone. I was too young to mess with, but I can't really, I heard stories. You know, you hear stories of what they did. But to see tension and feel it, I wish I could tell you differently. Never, ever saw it. Gentlemen, all the way down. Shook your hand, and that was it. And then Hughes came in and changed it. You know, because I was there the night Sinatra got his teeth knocked out, which is in my new book that I'm writing. That's the one time when I saw the power of it, was when he wanted money, got on a blackjack table, started screaming and yelling, because when he got drunk, he was a great guy.
You remember Frank?
Yeah, Sinatra. Yeah. Carl Cohen, who was the head guy for the mob at the Hotel de Sands, was the nicest guy. They got him out of bed, 1 in the morning, drove over in a golf cart, had a bathrobe on, and was sitting in a corner. They take Sinatra into him. Sinatra said something very disparaging, threw a chair at the security guard, said something vile to Carl, who I'd never seen out of line or raise his temper. The man got up, mob boss, got up after Sinatra dumped the table and hot coffee all over him, and he punched him right in the mouth, and his front teeth went all over the coffee shop. That's the only time I've seen that kind of violence.
That's pretty amazing. That's Frank Sinatra.
If you're going to see something, that's the one to see.
Frank was so well loved, but if you had to have like, in terms of the most charming of the Rat Pack, who was the most charming of the group? Yourself excluded, obviously.
Well, of course. Dean Martin. Yeah. Well, you know, they all had their thing. It's kind of a tough one. You know, Sammy Davis had a very engaging style. Dean, of course, was quietly charming. But, you know, Frank was the gentleman, the great artist, and when he was a friend, he was a great friend, and he could just charm a whole room when he walked in. It's a pretty even keel between all of them, but he was the guy. I mean, this was a great artist. This guy knew exactly what he was doing creatively. He cared, he worked that image, and when he liked you, he was a gentleman and a good pal, and that's how I remember him.
When I got this record, I put it on, and like our friend Tyson was talking about, this isn't leaving for a long time. So if you want the perfect album to just put on the background in your house throughout the holiday season, even if you don't celebrate Christmas, it's Songs of December from Paul Anka. We'll be right back. Thanks, Paul.